This conference will now be recorded.
Yes. So talking to Nick and the next day, Nick and I talked and said, hey, just let's get an update, get people to understand it more, and have some maps and things and try to keep it to where it can understand. I spent 2 hours yesterday and he spent an hour and a half on a call with 12 people. It is very technical, and I said, do not go there. So anyway, so we got the purple pipe and they're connected but not connected. Well, they are connected, but anyway, so on the agenda, we have purple pipe first because that's a project we're actually gonna be doing tonight. But if you wanna change it up to start at the treatment plant, whatever flows best for you, Nick.
Awesome. I was going to suggest that we do Purple Pipe second, since it's kind of the end of the story of this whole project. Heather, did the other counselors have that update memo that I sent to you
Yeah,
before
I
the
have it on
meeting?
the screen. I have it on the screen too, so the community can see it, so I
Then
can
those
go
maps
through
are
it.
online. They're in
And
that packet.
so, really, for the council, this is your in-depth sort of information. It's 7 pages of details of what we've been up to. I'll try to hit kind of the high points, but I would encourage you, if you read through all this, you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I can explain anything that you want more information on. There really kind of is a unlimited depth of information on this project. So if you get interested, be happy to educate you. But big picture is there's 6 different tracks, uh, or 6 different tasks that are going on with this project, um, and all kind of moving in parallel. Some of them are connected, some of them are not connected. The big one that we're working on, and the call that Rick referenced, is the Section 7, or the environmental compliance consultation. So that's just a process, because of some of the public comments that were made over 2 years ago, I think at this point, directly to HUD by some folks in the community. Um, Fish and Wildlife and the National Marine Fisheries kind of became concerned about this project and then opened up a consultation process that has caused the city to need to do groundwater modeling and just a lot of scientific study to determine not only uh, how the groundwater might be related to the river, but how the water that is injected into the ground from the wastewater treatment plant will potentially reach the river through the ground and a mile away, and what impacts that might have on the fish, the endangered fish in the river. So the gist of it, after our 2-hour call yesterday, we have some way forward on some of it, um, and some obstacles in other parts still. And kind of the big issue is the monitoring that the fish services want the city to do in order to use the facility. They really want us to monitor on private property 1.5 miles away from the treatment plant site, where it's modeled that these, water particles will hit the river. Um, the city can't really do that. It's not feasible to monitor for, long term on private ground in a site you don't control and have no authority over. So that's something we're we're still trying to figure out with them is what level of monitoring they will accept. We're hoping we can just go with kind of our existing monitoring plans that have been submitted to DEQ as a part of the permit process, but adding heavy metals and petroleum. They're most worried about basically the potential for this wastewater as it travels through the ground to pick up historical contamination of heavy metals and diesel on some of these industrial sites. You know, even though the city has cleaned up the Oregon Pine site, the other sites around it have not been cleaned to as much degree. So that's where their concern comes from with that. Any questions about that? That was pretty quick and simple.
You will have it online.
But we don't have it.
You don't have it yet. I got it sent right before the meeting, so
He's gonna have some maps and stuff to show us which the R is, Heather will be able to grab off our.
There is a map. There should be a map in the packet. I saw that.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's in there.
Try to.
yes.
Yeah, that thing's 70 pages long or something.
25.
Yeah, because it should
Or
go,
70.
it goes in order, there you go,
Yeah, it's kind of in the middle, if I remember.
Scrolling through it now.
There
Should
it
be
is.
the only color page in the for 50 pages.
Hold on, I'm getting it on my
right side
screen.
up, there you go.
Okay, I have it on there.
So this kind of gives an idea of where the treatment plant will be, and then to the west, if you kind of visualize the path west of the river, and then where the river bends north, that's kind of where they're worried about the groundwater coming into interaction with the river. DEQ has no issues with this. This really wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for the federal funding that we have and some of the comments that have been made in the past. So it's kind of escalated this to a higher level. So if we can get to agreement with the fish services on monitoring, and we can submit what's called a biological assessment, which is kind of the city's big document that describes what impacts we think are likely or maybe difficult to figure out, and know exactly what's going on underground. And the BA we submitted, and then from that point on, it's going to be 4 to 7 months to get through. Fish services have to produce a biological opinion, and that will be adopted by USDA. And then USDA needs a 45-day process, and then we'll have environmental clearance on the project. So there's a couple ifs. Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
I just say, add that up, the number of months, and that starts when? That's just on that part.
Right, so that clock, that we'll say 180-ish day clock, starts when the biological assessment is finalized. So we've got our consultant experts, which are not me, working with Fish and Wildlife and the Fishery Services to tie the last few bows on that and put a monitoring plan together for the city. And then we'll submit that. We get a last round of informal comments, and then we'll submit it to a formal consultation process, which the fish services have told us they're going to try to expedite and be quick because we've had so many conversations about this. But they can take up to 135 days. That is obviously frustrating, and Rick and I shared our frustrations over that long timeline. There is a little bit of a plus. Oh, sorry, somebody talking.
I have a counselor that has a question on that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, our Senator Ron Wyden will be in town within the next month. Would this be helpful to have him go look at the project and maybe goose him a little bit?
So Wyden's aide, Kathy, has actually been super helpful with all this. She was on part of our call yesterday, and she was on another call. After our call, she was talking to the fish services and um, really just trying to help them see the city's side of things. So I do think at this point they're putting the pressure on for the city behind the scenes without upsetting any apple carts, right? I mean, we still do have to get these services to agree with us, and our fate is kind of in their hands. So it's a delicate sort of dance of pushback and of advocating for what's in the city's interests, but not going full bore and kind of bringing down the hammer of the senator if we haven't gotten to a real stalemate. But it's potential that we could get to that stalemate, and I think that you'd be totally right that then you bring in the senator and you get a little more, you push back a little harder with your elected representatives.
Worked with Kathleen a lot. I know her very well. I'm sure she'll be with Ron when he comes here, so I'll put a bug in her ear to remind her.
I don't know if Aaron's there, but I think he gave Kathleen a tour this afternoon of the project site. She was communicating with me earlier today about that.
What'd she say? I'm sorry.
She's interested. She wants to help us come to resolution.
Good.
So, she wants level heads to move forward, and she just kind of wanted to get a better idea of where the site was, where some of the issues around monitoring were, and just be able to have her eyes on it to help move this process forward. There's my diplomatic.
I mean, just so the public understands what we're up against, Nick, I guess a reference to, in my opinion, the ridiculousness of their requests or their theory is our drop of water in a 5-gallon bucket type of impact. With the amount of groundwater that flows under this valley, probably 80 to 90% of the John Day River flows underground through the whole valley, hillside to hillside. And we're putting, in comparison to that flow of water, we're essentially putting a drop of water into a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, and that's the argument that our groundwater scientists has really tried to drive home. I mean, the last month and a half, and part of why this is taking a while is they've really just pushed back on the science without any science of their own. They don't have their own groundwater model. We have a groundwater model, and that says there will be very little change. There will be a slight change. If you think about that drop in the bucket, when you drop the drop in the bucket, there's a small ripple around the drop. And they're worried about that little ripple, and maybe it's going to make the groundwater do a different thing in a different place and pick up something, and maybe if right. But the pro of this long process we're about to initiate is that it'll be a formal consultation, and the effect determination, which sounds bad, but isn't quite as bad when you dig into what it actually means. The effect determination will be likely to adversely affect. But when we go through this project or through this process, it's going to give the city some legal cover rather than an informal process where if there's a fish take, so fish die, it's not just going to automatically come back to you guys, and you will have some level of disturbance in the river that would be accepted as long as you follow the monitoring plan. Because in actuality, there's so much going on around the river. It's impossible to point a finger at the treatment plant discharge and say that's the reason why X, Y, and Z might have happened. So it's just trying for us to thread that needle right now.
Yeah, because we've been dumping into that same groundwater table for 60 years. Haven't seen a big fish kill off yet. And with a lot less pure water than we're going to be dumping into it out of the new treatment plant. So, I mean, to me, it's just a lot of silliness, but we got to do what we got to do.
Nick, this is
I
Chris
mean, I
again.
agree. We're in it, you know, so we gotta, the only way out is through, unfortunately.
Is there any way, this has been going on for 20, 30 years, it seems like. Is there any way for the public to see a simple, I mean, really simple flow chart? And say, here's what, we know the ending, what it's gonna be, but here's where we started, and look at the different steps and say, this has been approved, this is not. Is there any way we can see that, or have the public see that, so we know exactly what to tell them, or they can see, oh, I didn't know we had to go through that step. I didn't know we had to go through this step.
So it's definitely not a flow chart. I mean, I'm also a visual person, so I like that idea. I'm overwhelmed thinking about all of the steps that have happened and how to illustrate it because it has been so long. It has been a couple years. This memo, I think, does a pretty good job, at least not visually, but describing what's been done over the last 6 months. Um, you know,
And I'll add
this,
no, go ahead. Go
um,
ahead.
well, now I lost my train of thought. So say your thing and then
Oh,
I'll think about it again. Sorry.
I will add the memo to the website too, so the community has access to all of it, because we just got it right before this.
I know, but
meeting.
it's all reading. And a lot of people say, I don't read stuff, I want to look at it.
Well, then you tell them to read. That's my answer to them. Like, it's so much information, Chris. I don't know if a flow chart would even be able to grasp all of the stuff that's happened. And I mean, like, once you read this wonderful 7-page document that I skimmed through right before the meeting, I mean, I've been involved with it for the past 6 months, and I still probably couldn't even put it in a flow chart. So I get where you're coming from, that the community wants a visual, but I don't know how much more visual we can be with the written documentation of everything that's gone on.
I mean,
And my
I
answer,
could do that, but it would take a long time and it would cost you a lot of money
I don't want to waste
for
your
me
time
to do
doing that. I have way more important stuff for you to be doing than a flow chart, if I'm being completely honest. The community will have this, and if they have further questions, they can get a hold of us and we can get those answers for them. But the community can do their own research and read 7 pages, just like we have to, and if they have questions, they know where to reach out to us.
I do think this project is about to look a lot more like a typical project soon. You know, we've just been stuck in this phase for so long with, you know, first DEQ wanted more information like 3 years ago. So we had to go through a whole bunch of initial data gathering with them. And then we got through that. And then the fish folks wanted more information. And now they continue to want more information and more information. And that's why, you know, it can seem like nothing's happening, um, but our scientists are writing their hearts out, producing just dozens and dozens of pages and models and data, and you know they're still not satisfied. So this provides that beat by beat. You know, the flow chart simply is that we're in preliminary engineering phase right now. We're in environmental and preliminary engineering phase. We're almost through permitting, so DEQ would let you go build it here pretty soon. But we have to get our money, and our money is what's tied up in all this biological and environmental stuff. But once that's cleared and we get our money, we're going out to bid. We're getting a contractor, we're getting an engineer, they're designing this thing, and they're lining out a schedule where it goes and gets built. It's just unfortunate. I was more optimistic that within maybe 3 months we would be through it, but it sounds like it's more like 4, 6, 7 months. But if we can get to that point where the fish services accept the biological assessment, we are moving forward and we're finally through this 2-year slog.
Aaron, have the fish people actually been on the ground and looked at our stuff?
I don't know for sure. Most of this stuff has been through video chats. I'm not positive if they have or have not.
Would it matter?
I don't really think so.
It's modeling,
not-
it's
modeling.
underground. I mean, it's, where's that water flowing? And
Yeah, and we're not talking about the state, Oregon, Fish and Wildlife, it's the NOAA fisheries.
Yeah, it's
That's-
U.S.
that's-
Fish and Wildlife and National Marine Fisheries Services.
But it's
So
only
that's,
being held up, and we only have to go through that because it's federal money. Is that what you said earlier?
there's two reasons why we're stuck in this. One is because it's federal money. Why they're able to do this is because it's federal money. Why this project came to their attention, because they were notified of this project 3 or 4 different times by me before it became a big deal, but they were a local individual sent a letter or something to, I believe it was either HUD or the fisheries themselves, and we were 2 days away from publishing our environmental clearance. Days away. I sent the final draft to Business Oregon, and they said, "Hold on, stop everything. We've got a fish problem." And here we are. I think that was in early 21 or 22.
Okay, do you want to give an update on, any other questions on treatment plant from council? All right, can we move on to purple pipe?
Let me give the quick cliff notes of the next 5 tracks of this project. If you don't mind, the USDA money that we have applied for, we have an application in, we're doing the paperwork, but that all depends on this environmental process. So that's got to be done, and then we get our multi-million dollars from USDA. DEQ permitting continues to go great. Things have been submitted to them back in May. No issues with that so far. Preliminary site preparation, things like the 7th Street extension are getting along, moving along again, about to start back up. And that brings us to the purple pipe and the solar array. And that's what we want to talk about next, right, Heather?
Yes, please.
So the city got awarded almost $3 million in August of 22 to design and build the purple pipe distribution system. Now, what the purple pipe is it's a underground pipe system that goes from the new treatment plant to a variety of end users for our Class A wastewater discharge. So it'll be highly treated wastewater discharge. It can be used for a lot of different purposes, industrial purposes like a log pond or irrigating a golf course or a park. So as you guys know, you went out for proposal, I think in December or January, on the purple pipe engineering. So, you need an engineer to come on and actually design this thing. And so that was awarded to HECO engineers, and they have, I think you guys have a contract on the agenda tonight with those guys. And that's really important for us to get that signed and them moving, because our grant agreement with OWRD for that $3 million expires in December. So we really need to make some concrete steps and move forward before we ask them for an extension. You don't want to go to them and say, well, we've done nothing in a year and a half. Can we please have another year and a half? I guess it's been a year, about a year. And on that project, there's also a number of easement issues that I'm honestly not super educated on, but seems like Aaron is pretty up to speed. And Heather, we talked last week or 2 weeks ago about some of those easement issues, and I think it would be good for the city just to know who's negotiating those. As Rick transitions out in July, we just really need a point person for the city to kind of continue to take the lead on some of the on the ground stuff. I can be on Zooms and I can write memos and I can be on emails, but when it comes to negotiating with a local resident on an easement, I'm not your guy.
Rick, on that one,
So,
with recommendation from you, I mean, Aaron's been involved, obviously, Aaron continuing to do that piece.
What was your question? I was
The
reading the letter
easement.
from HECO that came about.
No, you're good. The easement agreements that go along with the purple pipe.
Oh, do we have all these ones? Or we need?
No,
Oh. Well,
That'll be all part of the plan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's gonna be somebody that's gonna be
yeah.
leading negotiation, doing the legal paperwork.
Of course, you can't really go after now, stop me if I'm wrong, can't really go, an easement is, it's 10 feet here or it's 10 feet here. If you haven't designed it yet, you don't know even where that is, correct? I mean, not to go get easements. Or do you
Sure,
just
at
go?
about like 20% design, you'd know your alignment, and then you start going after those easements. So then you got to get surveyors to write your legal descriptions, and you have to negotiate a deal even, before you go out and do all those steps. So there's some things that can start to happen now, and pretty soon you'll reach a point where you should start moving forward on that stuff. So I just think I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 different easements, Aaron. It's the Parsons easement, is there a golf course easement too? Don't quote me on that. Or a
It's
easement to
possible.
get to the golf course.
I think Aaron just said that there's lots of moving pieces, so,
Okay.
I think that needs to happen in one of our management meetings, and I think I'll include you on that next one with Aaron and Casey and myself and stuff, and figure out what the next steps needs to be for some of that stuff to bring it in front of council.
Perfect.
Do the end users pay for the purple pipe water?
Yep, that's the whole idea. And so that's going to bring revenue back to the city to help pay for this system. So it's basically a free distribution system that you guys get with this grant funding to go out and make revenue from your treatment plant.
But it will also save the users tremendously as well, is what I remember some talk back when prior management was here and stuff like that. We don't have numbers yet, obviously, and I know that's like one of the concerns for the golf course in Malheur, but as things get closer on engineering pieces, we'll have more estimated costs for them.
And is the pipe already bought?
The pipe is not bought.
No,
What
not for
was the
that.
pipe that
We've been,
the city was buying?
putting purple pipe in, which is a reclaimed water pipe, as we are doing some of these projects.
Oh, okay.
Where it makes sense.
Didn't the city buy a bunch of pipe ahead of time to save money?
We bought a bunch of pipe for, the URA did, for some
The
of that.
subdivision.
The subdivision.
Subdivision stuff. Any other questions from council for Purple Pipe project or Nick or, Nick is also, just so you guys are aware, Nick and myself, basically every month, at the beginning of the month, there will be an update of what has happened over the last 30 days, and we'll put it in the consent agenda, just to kind of keep the community and you guys updated. Won't be discussed unless we need to discuss things, but we want to start making that available for everybody so they kind of know, so you guys know, so you can answer the questions, and as well as let the community know what's kind of going on, because Rick and I know the amount of conversations and telephone calls we have on a Friday, wonderful afternoon, or a Tuesday, or a Thursday, or a whatever day. So there is so much behind the scenes, so we just want to make sure the community and you guys know, but it'll start being like a once a month at the first meeting of the month, just an update of what the last 30 days have. There might be no updates, or there might be a lot of updates. Any other questions for Purple Pipe? Okay.
One of the things and I brought it up before, at some point you do need to keep this, I'm talking to the council, not all the consultants, but one of the things, and I've said it several times, is this is the first time I've ever been around a project that no one has really given at least people will say, well, they kind of got one, but still nothing ever, I've never had a piece of paper, but what's it gonna cost everyone? And so I just think at some point that is something that you're kind of blindly moving forward on a multi-million-dollar project that there isn't really been, because it's a progressive design build, because it's a little unique. It's not like most plants. You heard that at our meeting about, I think we were here 2 weeks ago, that you're gonna need extra help or specific help because this is so unique. And I think they said maybe no one else in Oregon can even explain it, if that was the gist of what you all heard here. And so I do think at some point, I'm not saying when, it could be 6 months, it could be 3 months, it could be a year, but don't lose sight of, does this raise sewer bills $25 a month, $5 a month, $50 a month? You know, Lapine added a new $25 million water sewer system, and it, you know, was gonna bring them up to about $80. And so, and they got 50% federal grants. I'm not saying that'd be your number, it's all different, but we always knew that up front, and we talked about that at our first public hearings that we held, community, we brought them to the school, and, you know, we'd have 50 people, 100 people in the audience. And that was our first hits, was always, by God, I don't want that. But we told them we have to do it. It's not something you can debate. You have to replace this plant. But there is a cost, and I just don't want you to lose track of that. When you've only got a couple hundred users, 200 or 300 or whatever the number is of users, what does that come to per month to the house across the street?
Well,
And how does that affect it?
we actually did that already.
Okay,
When they first,
I've been asking for that document.
well, when they first did the estimated costs for this package plant 2 or 3 years ago, the city raised the sewer rates $35 a month above what they were in order to qualify for the funding. We had to bring them up to that point. The thought
Oh, the
was that,
affordability rate.
right, and the thought was that that would not end up being increased to the public users, but that money would be the additional money if there was additional money needed, that the hope was that that would all be taken care of by grants. So we actually already did do that big sewer hike, and we did it 2 or 3 years ago.
So here, I can expand on that a good bit because we talked about this at our work session back in January. I mean, there is a cost for the project. It's on page 6 of the PER from 2022. It's $11.8 million. That was the cost in August of 22. So now we've had another year of inflation. So add 7-8%. And then when we actually go to build it, add another, 5 to 7% because it's going to be another year after that. So it's probably more like 12 to 13 million now. And every 6 months it gets more expensive, which is part of what we complained to the fish services about yesterday. But it's impossible at this point to say what the impact is going to be per user because USDA is such a wild card in this situation. The rates are totally different than they were when we first designed this project. As everyone knows, rates have been increasing over the last 2 years. There's also the matter of how much grant money USDA gets in their budget in any particular fiscal year. They will be making a request to the national office to give us more grant money than they have available. But it's a big if of will the national office grant that? There's also still additional opportunities for us to chase other grant money for this project. There's congressionally directed spending. There's the Clean Water Revolving Loan Program. So there's still grant money out there for this project. We haven't exhausted all the sources. But what I always do, Rick, and I agree with Rick about, sort of a dollar per user impact is what I always like to see too when I come to a city and we talk about funding, but there's too many variables with the money on this one. It's a range. There's and the range is something like, I think our January work session was something like $150,000 to $400,000 a year in annual debt service as a result of the plant, which is just a huge range.
Any other questions on Purple Pipe or treatment plant from council? Okay, thank you, Nick. You can stick around if you would like, or you are free to go on your merry way for your evening. I appreciate your time.
What about the solar?
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
stick
sorry,
around and
solar.
listen.
Oh, can we get an update on solar?
Oh, yeah, sure. It sounds like Aaron, Tetra Tech was selected as the engineer.
Tetra Tech was part of the application and the award.
Okay.
With Tetra Tech and NCD, who at one point we were gonna think of to have them kind of help, kind of work with Tetra Tech and make sure that we're hitting all the grant obligations and metrics. They have since said they are too busy to do that, so we were talking, they have some people basically are willing to plus up their office, which would actually probably save the city some money. But right now, we're basically need to start working through the contract agreement, just like we have been doing with ECO, with Tetra Tech, so we can start. So, they've seen or have looked at some boilerplate professional service agreements, just from previous RFPs, actually for the purple pipe. I said, go look at the purple pipe RFP that was a sample professional services agreement, so you can have your legal look at the boilerplate language that the city uses while we're starting to put together a scope of work, a schedule, a budget that will all be wrapped up in that contract. Let's at least let the attorneys start to see where they have heartburn or not. So that's where that's at, because that, once we accepted that, we were starting a 6-month clock. So
Yeah, it's kind of quick.
they are ready to go. They're excited about it. They've been penciling this in their schedule. So, this is a planning grant. So the result will be hopefully some planning documents that the city could then turn into construction grant request through the same program. Where we're at right now is determining the scope of the project. There's a resiliency component of these community renewable energy grants. And if you have resiliency, you could potentially apply for a construction grant that covers 100%. Without resiliency, which is some sort of storage or, energy generated, like, the inline hydro could have been that piece of it. There's other options, there are some storage components. We're gonna look through what does actually the definition of resiliency mean? How does that impact that component? If you don't qualify for that, then you are only qualifying for 50% of a construction grant. So, I think ideally, we want to look at the options to have the resiliency component in there. We need to do some research on what that piece looks like. So we're having those discussions. Right now, it is Tetra Tech and myself. And so we'll probably need to be looping in some others from council. And we're going to need to be working on the contract piece because we've known that can take a while. And so we are in the fall.
So can we loop in the Public Works Committee on that and have them be helping you guys on whatever you need and direction and stuff? So, okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good opportunity to use those committees that you just formed and get them educated on it. They know a little more about it. And, maybe for the next one, maybe you set up a monthly meeting. It's just, it's 10 o'clock on a Thursday every once a month or something, to where everyone knows that can attend. They can't all be at night. I just don't think most of those kind of committees are often during the day.
Right.
It doesn't always work for everyone. But that's, I think, would be good.
Okay.
And we maybe it'll help us get some grants for the treatment plant. I mean, that was also kind of the nexus for this is it's innovative. Everyone's into the green energy, into all of this. And so, having a power source right there from solar on site, that is not normal. So it's, something that could be a real benefit, I think, as they're all looking for something different, the funders.
And OTEC.
Reduces your operations costs too.
We started this process with OTEC looking at what does that look like, whether you're doing a net metering system, whether you're just providing energy for your plant. So we'll be continuing to talk with OTEC throughout this process.
Okay. All right. Anything else on treatment plant, purple pipe, solar? XYZ.
I can wait to say something. I have a couple things I'd like to say while Nick is still here.
So this is a
Any
work
Okay,
session.
I'm just asking if Nick's gonna be here during the city council.
I can
Nick-
stick around for council. I was planning to.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next one is the violation and orders to abate and vacate property. Rick Allen.
Yeah, I wanted to update you on where we are with the fire burned out buildings. And a newspaper today on the front page had a story on the kind of what's going on, and that kind of evolves. We did post it, as you well know. That was about 3 weeks ago. And they also got certified letters, and so the tenants got it, and also the landowner, who was the major where you needed to go. But it's kind of interesting. People say, well, why did it have to go to the tenants? And actually, it was one of the tenants' insurance company that explained it real well to me, that the owner of the building can't go in and claw out my tenants' belongings, even if they're burned. Could be a safe in there. There could be a rack. Grandma's picture is melted on the floor. He said, that is not owned by the building owner. And it's just, so actually this company was going in and they were gonna go clean out. It may be melted in a pile. It may be some shirts that are in a pile, but they're gonna go clean that all out because it's contents. The owner didn't have a responsibility to take out contents. And so while all of us who are lay in all of this, there's like everything, there's a lot more to it. But the insurance companies know it, and they know that, can I get? Okay. So anyway, but we're not, remember, we are not their insurance company. They will do what they all want to do based on the insurance they all have and all of those things. But ours is, the ordinance is getting rid of the danger and cleaning up the blight. How that gets done is really, and so we have to kind of treat everyone equal. And that's what the letters did. The 10 days, they were given 10 days, and of course that was passed. And so we, right now, where I've talked to Garrett from Bryant Levin Jarvis, has worked on this with me because that's kind of his baby with his planning, and this is really a code planning issue. And him and I have talked a lot about it, and they have helped provide direction in this. And unfortunately, it's like any law, it's a legalistic thing. So when it says you have to do this and you could be fined this, because that's what our ordinance says. That wasn't just made up by him and I. That's what the ordinance approved by a council. I don't know when. It could have been 20 years, 30 years ago, but that's what you do. We followed the notice requirements. We included the things that had to be in the letter because that's what needed to be done. So that's all taken place. So everyone's been warned and they know where we are. As I told the newspaper, we're looking for compliance. It's like any other code deal. It's really, you ask for compliance. You tell them this is what can happen if you don't, but you do not go in heavy-handed. You don't go in, sling it in there, and we're not. So the newspaper asked me yesterday, well, what are you gonna do? The 10 days are up. Well, it's 20 days are up, but we're not doing anything on that right now. We're working on compliance. Mr. Emery you read it in the paper, he sent me an email just to me, and he's going to put a little ad or a notice out trying to get a buyer for it, and then they would have to clean it up. Under the ordinance, the person who buys it still has to clean it up. It doesn't get erased because there's now a new owner. But he said, are you gonna give us time if I get a new buyer to clean it up? In other words, if you buy it on Tuesday, they probably aren't going in Wednesday to dig it out. And so we said it certainly, we expect that. Again, we want compliance. Going into a legal process, the last place you want to go. Right now, we're kind of letting Mr. Emery run his ad and see who wants to buy it and if it moves forward. We are going to take the violation and have it, I'm gonna do it tomorrow, we're gonna record it. So a buyer sees it when they do a title search. Because that is important according to legal counsel, so that they are warned when they buy in a title report that this exists. So that's where we are. I think it's moving along as well as can be expected, but I want to make sure you all knew, and if you had any questions, I may or may not be able to answer it, but it's really a waiting thing. There's 3 tenants and one owner, and we don't control the property. You did read about the park thing. He asked a lot about having a park there, and I said, well, that would require budgeting and all kinds of things and other discussions that would take along. That can happen, but the building has to be cleaned up. It's affecting the tenants on at least one side for sure, and they have to have that dealt with because they share the whole wall. And, so you get into this. So we do need to keep moving forward on it. So I guess firm, but kindness, and we want compliance.
How long do the tenants get to remove their property?
I don't know that. She may know.
Information,
And
like
if they choose.
She can speak for her business.
Well, it kind of involves all of them because they had a group inspection for all the insurance companies, and that wasn't until June 6th, and we couldn't go in to take anything out until after that. So we still, up until that day, and I still haven't gotten notification from my insurance company that I can actually go in and take anything out. The question, what we're kind of running into from my being able to look at it is the roof caved in on everything. So for us to go in and like scoop all of our stuff out, we're almost having to scoop out the building, like, because the roof, all the beams are in the building, so you can't walk in to get your stuff because it's dangerous. So we're really trying to figure out like who goes first.
That'll be a civil matter.
Right.
That's a civil matter between the parties.
But just to let you guys know where we're at, that's why that's why we haven't gone in to get anything out. And we were specifically told we have to wait till June 6th for sure for that meeting to happen. And that was the final fire inspection from fire inspectors.
So what did your insurance company say about the trusses that are falling in?
They haven't yet. That's why I haven't done anything yet. I'm still waiting to hear even from I don't have a report yet, even from the 6th, from their meeting.
So do we have an ordinance or anything about them clearing out like 2 years, 1 year, 6 months?
Well, no, I mean, we have the ordinance right now. We could take it to the next step because the 10 days is up and I mean, there's.
No, I mean, we're talking about.
Oh, theirs? That's civil.
Yeah, but they have.
But they were notified. They all fall in it.
Right.
Yeah. But no one's moving forward. It is a very complicated. There's no black and white answer, Chris.
Okay.
It's that at the end of the day, it's mainly the building. I mean, it's the building. It's because that's what has fallen down. This council is not solving all those issues over there, and so don't even try. They have to have it abated. We have to make sure it's safe. We need to make sure that awning eventually gets down. We can open up the sidewalk, that nobody has that fall on them, and it gets cleaned up.
I'm just talking about the tenants, not the building itself.
Well,
If it's stuck inside, how long do they get?
Look, it's the same law, and we're not going after them.
Okay,
So,
I just don't want to have someone say, well, how come, June 6th is the first time that they, quote unquote, the insurance company said, okay, we give you our blessings.
So they haven't given us the blessing.
They haven't given the
They just
blessings.
did the meeting.
Okay.
so trying to get it out of there. And when you have someone with no insurance and not many assets, you don't get blood out of a turnip.
I
And
just worry about there's a major business to the east that would like to open without having the stink and smell and all that stuff of the old burn still there.
We're pushing.
Both sides, I think, are pushing forward.
I've been talking to Wendy quite a bit. We're all pushing really hard
Good.
to get.
So unless you guys want anything else done, that's kind of the path.
I'm good with that.
I think that's all you can do
Yeah.
for now.
See if he gets a buyer, and that'll maybe solve everything.
I think so. Okay. Anything else on that?
You mentioned that you might have a buyer interested.
He called me, well, it must've been after he talked to the newspaper, and he does have a buyer that he's talking to, but I don't know how far they are or where it's at.
Okay.
So I think it is important for us to record it so that the buyer, I mean, I'm sure the buyer knows, but just to cover our bases so that they're not shocked. I agree with recording it.
Well, we might have to start over if they didn't, that could be a debate according
Right.
to, our Garrett, we may want to get into that to start over, so let's get it recorded.
Absolutely. All right, if there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the work session.
Take a motion to adjourn the work session.
David makes the motion. Do I hear a second? Katrina seconds. All in favor of adjourning the work session at 6:52 PM, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned. All right, well, we're reset.
This conference will now be recorded.
Alrighty, so I am going to open the regular city council meeting at 7 o'clock. Note that all council is present, as well as Rick Allen and audience. I want to remind everybody to please sign in if you did not. Any amendments? I have one for the agenda, but does anybody else have any amendments to the agenda as accepted? Okay, I'm gonna add a discussion. We need to have an executive session for the recruiting team to talk about our city applications. It was not noticed for our executive session today. The recruiting team was planning on being here, but it was not noticed for a personnel piece of that, so we need to notice for it. So I will add that to the agenda. I would make a motion to, I have a motion to approve the amended agenda
With the executive session.
with the added executive session talk.
We can call it executive session anytime. You don't have to.
Yeah, I just want to get dates from you guys because they gave me a couple dates that work for them, so.
Oh, you want to vote tonight?
No,
Oh, I thought you were voting.
no, we don't have the public notice out, so.
You have to get that out ahead.
For executive session?
Yes.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, any meeting, and
Yeah.
basically, at least 24 hours, but which you're saying, we wouldn't notice for this, it was that piece was missing, so therefore, you couldn't just add.
Yeah. So, motion to approve the amended with the executive session talk, and I'll do it at the end.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda with the executive session.
And Sherry made the motion. Do I hear a second?
I can second that.
Ron seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. So consent agenda, any discussion, or I would entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion for claims.
We'll let the motion be and then we can have discussion. Yeah? Go ahead. You can make your motion.
To approve the consent agenda.
Katrina makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
David seconds. Discussion?
I've got a question on the check register.
Yep.
There is a charge here for Catalyst, and I'd like to know what all that was about.
So 2,300 of that was Cybermill, which is in his contract for the Cybermill as the executive director. The other $6,000, give or take, don't have my math, was from council and employees contacting Catalyst in the last month to perform different duties. I was brought to my attention at a meeting with Nick Green, Nick Ducati, Rick Allen, and myself that this had happened, and so Nick was submitting that because he had been asked. So employees and now council, I'm gonna tell you, he is not to be contacted unless it's approved because we don't have a contract for him. And so if there's something that employees need or something that council needs, they are to go through management to approve that.
And what was he doing for council?
I believe, hold on.
It was a sewer, it was a form that we needed worked on for the sewer related to moving forward on some of our grants and the projects you just heard about.
And budget review.
And budget
And the
review.
budget was a bunch.
And why was he in on budget review?
Dave called him.
No, I didn't call him. Anna called him. Because Anna was not getting the information she needed. She was panicked. She was on vacation. She was trying to figure out how she was possibly gonna present a balanced budget at the June 6th meeting when she was not getting the information she needed to figure out why the balance or the budget was so far out of whack. So she contacted Nick. Nick helped her figure out that things were being charged in certain departments that should have been charged out of different departments via grant money and stuff. And so once that was figured out, then Anna was able to, plus a meeting with Rick and me and Heather and Anna, and we finished discussing the last few things that needed to be adjusted in it in order to come up with a balanced budget.
So moving forward, council as well as employees know to contact management if they feel like they need to. Nick Ducati obviously is subcontracting him for some stuff when it comes to treatment plant things, but that is the answer to that.
So who would be management if Rick's no longer here?
Well, Dave and myself still have our authority that we were given January 11th as acting city manager.
So, and you guys contact Catalyst without our permission?
If it's under a certain amount, yes. I don't remember word for word what our contract states for approval with council.
I just wondered if, looking at that, I thought Anna was our budget officer, not Nick Green.
No, Anna's not the budget
She's the
officer.
clerk, or the,
Who was our budget officer?
I was a budget officer.
Rick is the
Did
budget.
you ask Nick Green to help you?
No, I did not know Nick Green was involved until we were meeting at City Hall and Dave had been to his house. Remember? And that was the first time. And then Anna was on vacation and I was letting her come back and then she had met with him for a few hours. And this budget is very complicated because of the grants. And there was some carryover from basically it was COVID money that was left, and our auditor had done something and set it aside. So we had $1 million shortfall. When Anna called me, she says, Rick, I'm having trouble with these two funds, about $500,000 each, broad numbers, streets and community development. I said, whoa. So I said, let me get these two down. And I called about 2 hours ahead of time. And then by the time we met down here, Nick had already been contacted, which I wasn't aware of. But then we, and Nick got into it. Nick did put a lot of work into it because these grants and all of these are ones that he's been involved with, and he worked real close with Anna, and they come up with, they got it balanced between the cuts we talked about last week, the positions and the extra money. And there's some other stuff, and you're right about putting some stuff in some wrong categories. So it was kind of a mixture of things that brought it all together ultimately to get us to this balanced budget. And Nick was important in that. But, I wasn't aware of it until afterwards.
Agreed. No, I mean, I think with everybody involved, it needed to happen that way. It wasn't anybody's wrongdoing, but I do think that we need to be cautious of reaching out to not contractors and reaching out to contractors that we currently have. If there's things that can be done in-house for a lot cheaper than our expensive contractors, we need to be cautious of that. And I've spoke to most of the management team, and they are aware of this necessity. And Nick, you have your hand raised, go ahead.
Yeah, you had mentioned that Ducote Consulting might have a subcontract with Catalyst for John Day work, but we do not. I'm not subcontracted with Nick Green or Catalyst for any work in John Day.
So any treatment stuff, because there is treatment plant on this invoice, that will be billed to us separately.
Yeah, he's billing you guys directly. It's not through me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I have a motion, or I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye. Aye, opposed? All right, passes. And for our minutes, Katrina made the motion. Nope, Katrina made the motion, Dave made the second. This is the time for public comment. You have 3 minutes because they've given me a task of staying within 51 minutes of our meeting. So 3 minutes public comment if it's something that is not on the agenda. Go ahead, Shannon. Step on up.
I've talked about that in the past a lot, is try to do a flow chart for the public. Because as much as we've tried to say, please read what we've been provided, we've been providing pages and pages and pages of information for years. Some people just don't get it that way. And I know that Nick said it would be really, really hard to do that, but then he made a comment of, we're in pre-engineering, that's where we're at right now. And then he did very broad strokes of where we're at, where we came from and where we have to go, and he did it in like 5 minutes. I mean, I really think that is, even if we could start with where we're at right now on the webpage and say, this is where we're at, we're thinking 4 to 7 months, and that was on the page, on the webpage, that would be really helpful to the public. I don't think it has to be an in-depth, picture of every little thing that's happened, but even that would be more than what the public is getting right now, which is where all that frustration is coming from. So that was just the comment that I wanted to make on that particular piece. The other question.
Do you want Nick to, I will let him Nick. Are you there?
I'm here. Did you want to let her finish her comment? I can speak to it if she wants. If she wants to just finish.
It's on something else, so that was my comment for you.
I mean, if you guys want something as simple as like a thermometer, think of like a thermometer fundraiser. I mean, sure, that's easy. If there's like 4 or 5 phases to any construction project, and we're in preliminary engineering right now, I don't like the idea of throwing months and dates out there because so much of it is up in the air, and every time we have a call with a different service, there's a different date. There will be a point where we will know some dates, but it's not yet.
But I think even like several months instead of, this isn't next week, this could be a several month section, would be helpful to the public.
So I agree though with Nick, I don't want to put dates on anything unless we have dates. And so, maybe just something simple. We'll give it a fair share and see what the public has to think and council. Don't spend a ton of time on it, please.
I won't. I'll spend an hour or two.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then Shannon has another question.
Yeah. So question for the council. Last time during council, we talked about a single point for the wastewater treatment plant. And that came up again tonight when Nick said that you need someone local handling the easement negotiations. I'm also curious if we don't have a single person that's here that's handling the whole project, who's going after additional funding, grants, loans, and how to package that together. And Nick Ducote specifically said he's not the one to be able to do the easements. So I'm wondering where that falls and if any decision was made, because several people asked about whether Nick Green or somebody else, an RFQ was going to go out, and I haven't heard anything back on that or see it on this agenda. So I'm asking those questions.
I could kind of speak to that, Heather, if you want me to just jump in. So, I mean, I'm handling most of the project management tasks, but like I said, I'm more of the big picture. I'm not on the ground in John Day. I think, when we had met 2 weeks ago or so, we had talked about Heather kind of being the lead with negotiations, being informed and educated by myself and Aaron on the project details. If she was getting in an area where she was out of her depth, that we could brief her on that kind of information. But we do just need someone who's going to be a stable, consistent figure in the city. And this can be someone on city council or the mayor or someone on staff. I don't necessarily think you need to bring on a consultant for the very small sliver of tasks that are not being handled right now. It's really more of city staff tasks that in some ways there's just not a person identified as this person needs to go negotiate with these folks about this thing. And some of it is waiting on, for example, like the purple pipe engineer. There's technical information that needs to happen with some of this stuff. So we can't get the cart before the horse. There could be an RFQ to go out for an owner's rep, but there's nothing to rep at this point. You don't need an owner's rep until something is being built. Nothing's being built right now. What we need is an engineer and a vendor, but we can't go out and get those until we get the environmental clearance. So there's really right now what this is a funding application and environmental process, and I am a grant writer and your NEPA environmental reviewer. So I'm on top of asking for more money, applying for more grants. One of the recommendations in here is that we go for a clean water revolving loan grant or revolving loan, and that's going to be due in like August. Nick Green and I both tried to get congressionally directed spending for this project this year, and the feds were not really interested in putting more money on this project this year. But if we get things moving, they've indicated next year they would be interested in potentially funding some more of the projects. So I don't know that there's not much that needs to be done on the project, except that there needs to be a long-term city staff person who is looped in on some of these small details and informed about easement negotiations and how to go about that. Someone who has relationships in the town, and I don't have those relationships.
I can speak on that. So on the first, I met with Public Works Director and Aaron and Nick and Rick. And we are gonna start having now that school's out and my freedom is a little bit smoother after this week, we'll start having a bi-weekly managers meeting, basically sitting down, where are we at with these projects, where are we going? I believe we have the staff in our office that is fully able to make this happen with our consultants that we do have. But I also am willing to look into something if we find that we're at a position where we need somebody else to be brought in. I'm not gonna say no to that. But at this time, I mean, we had a really good conversation with Nick Green and Nick Ducote and Rick and myself and Aaron. And we believe that right now what's working is working really well. And so we're good with what we're doing.
So is Nick Green working on it?
No.
Or not working on it? Okay.
He's not.
But he was at the meeting.
He was at the meeting. He came to discuss things with us, but no, he is not signed. We do not have a contract with Catalyst.
So who is doing the negotiations with Parsons and the golf course?
We will start that when it needs to happen, but it has not started yet.
But we don't have a point person for that yet.
That will probably fall on our interim city manager. But right now, that will also fall on Dave and myself, who are gonna be the new city managers here in a couple weeks.
But we sent, I mean, we have staff that's
Yes.
looking into, we said to them, we want them to start getting some estimates on the cost of the things in that agreement, the Parsons agreement. So, Aaron's working on it, and I mean, so people are gathering, they had some estimates before, and so, I mean, they're all capable of that. It just didn't happen between the last meeting and this meeting.
And I understand that that's what was given to the public at the last meeting, that's what was gonna happen, so I'm following up to see.
But we didn't talk, last meeting, we didn't talk about hiring someone to help Parsons, do you?
No,
but it's right here in our meeting minutes, Councilor Phillips made a motion to have interim city manager Rick Allen move forward with the process to find a project manager.
And we have moved forward with that, Nick reached out to us. So Nick Ducati reached out to us and said, he listened to the meeting. He's like, I'm doing a lot of those. We didn't know that he was doing so much, let's just be honest. And so he is doing a lot of those things. And if for some reason employees or council or whoever comes to us and says, we have this issue, no one can seem to get us the answer for, that will be where management can approve to bring in Catalyst if we need to. That is why we made it a management decision, not an employee decision, because of the cost.
okay, that answers my question, because I didn't see it on there, and it felt like it was just dropping.
It's not dropping, but we have follow-up meetings with some of the easement stuff. I have follow-up meetings towards the end of the month with some other pieces of different things, so. There are meetings happening, 11-hour meetings on the 1st to be exact, so follow-ups are happening. Some things don't happen in a 2-week span.
We weren't aware that Nick was basically acting as, Nick Ducati was basically acting as our project manager. We thought he was just our grant administrator. But since he'd been in on the treatment plant since the very beginning, he's taken on that role for quite some time now. Council just wasn't fully aware of exactly what role he was playing in it until he contacted us last week and let us know.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other public comment? Oh, go ahead.
And I'll just reiterate what Heather said earlier, that I'm going to do a better job of communicating all these little steps and whatnot every month and how it's developing. Working for you guys has been a lot sometimes, and it's taken up a lot of my time, but I'm going to try to take a step back on the treatment plant project and make sure that you guys are getting updates on some of these little steps that are getting taken, because there is a constant, I mean, the consultants are constantly working on this project, trying to push it forward for you guys. It's just slow sometimes.
My name is Judy Schutte, John Day. I had something written out much more relevant a couple of weeks ago, and I debated about whether it would be still relevant tonight, and parts of it are. One thing I wanted to speak to was the comment just a few minutes ago about when people need the answer to a question that's a hard question and a complicated question, they know who to ask. And I agree with your process about having a process. I'm not debating that, but I want you to give some serious thought. Who is the person you've been going to get the answers to those questions? It's Nick Green, because he knows the answer to the questions. One of the former city councilors is much in that same position. She's been very willing at many meetings to offer her knowledge and her expertise. I'm going to make that point. I really would like you to, if you're hesitant or you're still hung up on something from the past. Time is money. Project. We can't, as a city, and you as a council, should not be wasting time on not getting the answers right away. If you need to use somebody who knows the answers and you know who that person is already, you've known it all along, that person is Nick Green. So I did want to make that point. I guess when I wrote this, I was concerned about maybe some advice the council had gotten to go down a different path. So I'm just going to read the rest of this, and some of it you can take for what it was worth a couple weeks ago. And if it's not relevant today, I apologize. Said, I hope you consider the following in going forward. I urge you to take the straightest path you can to make sure you have the right person in place who can handle and oversee this project, and you already know who that person is. There shouldn't need to be a delay because of procedures which may not be necessary, and I urge you to find out as soon as possible what is and isn't necessary. I believe you may have gotten some advice from the interim manager, and through no fault of his own, I don't believe he has the depth of understanding about how unique and groundbreaking this project is. You must have someone who has the knowledge and, almost more importantly, the contacts to problem solve and navigate hurdles that come up and keep things moving along. This person needs to be someone who can and will make the right phone calls to the right people with the confidence that his calls will be answered and acknowledged. Nick Green has been invested in this project and its success from the very beginning, and he will be here for the long haul. I urge you to take whatever steps need to be taken to get him on board. Every day, week, or month you wait by taking the crooked road rather than straight to the solution is wasting time and money. And if any of you still think there's someone else out there who's more capable and able to fill this role, you've just not been paying attention. It's long past time to put aside any personal baggage and think about your responsibility to the completion of this project and what is truly best for the city. And I urge you to consider these thoughts in moving forward. And the only other thing I wanted to say was how much I appreciated Nick Ducote's comment about how these delays happened in the first place. And I think that should be part of every conversation and in everybody's knowledge base about what put us behind the 8 ball time-wise. I believe it was absolutely a personal vendetta leveled at a city manager, and now we are paying the price.
All right, duly noted. Any other public comments? Okay, moving on. Iron Triangle Development Agreement Term Extension. Rick.
You should have, it's a one-page amendment. So how we got here, obviously we have a development agreement with Iron Triangle and they had submitted a bill for payment, which was legitimate, and it was several $100,000, and because ultimately it's going to be $750,000, and so this was like halfway mark. And we sent staff up, looked at it. There was a couple things need to get freshened up. They did that. But while I did the research to make sure, because, unlike Nick Green and the others, they know what these things all say. I have to go dig them all out, then I have to read them all. And there are lots of pages. So when I was reading through it, I find out, you hold 25% back, so you got to take that off. And, and you send staff up to make sure everything's been done. So we did that. But then I came to the term, and the term had expired. But I felt by looking at it, see, when you look at the 13 pages, I could tell that this was an error. It was not any diabolical plot for folks who are looking for those. It was an error. It was signed by both parties, and both parties are to have legal counsel, and it just got missed. That happens. So I immediately said, whoa, we've got to have this updated because I can't submit a $350,000 bill for payment with a expired agreement. I can't. And so immediately we went to work on this, because this was just discovered 2 weeks ago. We had to bring it to a council meeting. And so that's why this is here. And we extended it out so it matches the other dates in the rest of the agreement. And that's why it's pretty obvious it was a typo. And just no one caught it. Again, no villain in that. And so this, tonight, we need to approve this. It doesn't change any of the terms except adding out the date to June 30th of 24. And then in our register, per our agreement, we have a $325,000 check going to them. And we are signing it, but we do need both parties to sign it before we can hand them a check. And maybe you're the signer. He's sitting back here, but tomorrow they can get that signed, Russ, whoever needs to sign it. And then we'll be good on the agreement. Check will be there and we'll be all good. And then they'll have, continue on with the agreement. So that's why it's here.
Yep, and I can do a little bit on that too. We met with Iron Triangle, Rick and myself, and the attorney to talk about this. It was a good conversation. We are doing some further research, staff is, on some different costs and everything like that. And we have a follow-up meeting with Iron Triangle at the end of the month to go over some things with them and figure out what we do for the next step for some other projects that they have pending. But yeah, I agree. It's literally an oops and a typo, and it happened. It was prior management, and so, but we need to get these people paid, like they've put out the money. Yes, King.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, it was not just prior management, it was the attorney that was here, it was him that wrote the contract, and it was, the mistake is a date that was pre-signing. It was a date that was pre when the document was signed, so it was a ridiculous statement.
Yep. It's just fixing it for auditing and all that kind of stuff. It's really hard to fight an audit if we were to get questioned when we have a contract that's not employed. So I would entertain a motion to approve the Iron Triangle Development Agreement term extension.
I'll make a motion to approve the Iron Triangle Development Agreement term extension.
Sherry made the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Katrina seconds. All in favor of extending?
Got a question first.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I see that the check is $325,000, and that's going to be this month's written to Iron Triangle. Is that correct?
It's written.
It's written.
It's written.
It's on. If it's on your check registry, it's written and going to be signed after tonight.
Okay, I just want to make sure that.
Yep. It's written, typed up, ready to be printed, signed after we approve the consent.
Our fault through our legal counsel. Okay, just want to make sure. No fault of Iron Triangle.
Nope, absolutely not.
Okay.
Nope. Okay, I have a motion made by Sherry and a second by Katrina. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously.
Get paid, King.
Russ will be happy and King will be happy. And I do want to thank you guys for being so patient. It's been a process, and this little tiny error, we need to just cover ourselves with our audit. All right, so moving on, transportation project, priority projects and updates. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm Susanna Jolber. I'm from an engineering firm called Consor. I live in Bend, and we sent you a presentation earlier, Mayor. I don't know if you got it.
If one of yours, because I can't open my email without everybody seeing it.
I have it on a thumb drive.
If you, or one of, Madeline, could she just share it? I can give her, does she have it?
Maddie, do you have the latest? I think you do. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Let me pull it right up. Just give me one moment.
Okay, you're a presenter, so you should be able to share your screen.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll just go ahead and Aaron. So
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm Susanna Jolber, as I said, and Aaron Llewellyn is here with me. And online, we've got Madeline Phillips from Department of Land Conservation and Development, and then Matt Kittleson from Kittleson and Associates. You can see him there. Okay. Yeah, so thanks for having us today. We're going to be just doing a brief update on the Rural Transportation Equity Project. Maddie, are you able to do it? Yeah, okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm moving slowly, but I'm getting there.
I do have it on a thumb drive, so, okay.
And then if I did this,
Yeah.
Perfect.
how's that look for
Great.
you?
Can you make it into a slideshow so it's bigger and less stuff on the
Absolutely.
side?
You betcha.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, great. Okay, so thanks for having us, Council and Madam Mayor. This is a project that we've been working on. Yeah, it's hard to make it a little bit bigger, I think. Let's see.
Oh, I can make it smaller. That's as big as I can make it.
Okay, well, that'll do.
Yeah. Here.
I can hide everyone. Okay, there we go.
Okay, Maddie, go ahead to the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so just project background, and that's really small, you can't see it, but the City of John Day applied for grant funding in 2022. Some of you may remember this, through the Department of Land Conservation and Development for a project or a program called the Rural Transportation Equity Program. And the City of John Day was chosen in addition to, in addition to 5 other communities in the state to embark on a project where the goals are to identify areas where sidewalks, multi-use paths, bike lanes, and access to transit could be improved throughout the community. This includes ADA access, so access to transit stops, things like that, safe sidewalk networks. And there's a big emphasis on transportation options for folks who have mobility limitations, so who are in wheelchairs, other mobility limitations, and who also have may experience challenges in owning a car. Owning a car is more and more expensive. There's a lot of folks who can't own a car, especially if you're young. You're a kid, you're trying to get around town without one, or you're on the older side of the population. So this is a program that looks at those kind of underserved transportation-wise and tries to come up with a list of priority projects that will help the city in the future be able to apply for funding through ODOT or other grant funding to do some of these improvements throughout the community. So Maddie, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so a big objective is to help the city develop and adopt a plan with community engagement that will allow you to obtain funding in the future. And so over the last few months, we've been working on a number of community outreach events to help identify projects. There's a map out in the lobby. I'll probably leave that with the city, and it'll be at City Hall, and you can go in and look at the projects and develop a list of projects and a plan for safety initiatives and options for travel for those without a car. So go ahead, Maddie, next slide. So the project timeline, you won't be able to see this, but we started our work basically in December of last year. We did a lot of research. We did on-the-ground visits throughout the winter months and into April. We were interviewing folks. We did a series of stakeholder interviews. I think I talked to a few of you actually. So your input really helped us develop the projects that you'll see in a sec. We held, at the end of April, we did some targeted outreach. I'll talk about that in a sec. And we've developed this into a plan. We're refining the plan now and coming back. And our hope is to have folks identify their top 3 to 4 projects of the list of projects that we've developed. So just to be clear, all of the projects on the list will probably move forward in some form in the big plan, but our contract allows us to work on sort of concept design of the top 3 projects, or 3 projects. So we'd like to get community feedback on what those would be so our engineers can start doing that. And then our contract actually ends at the end of June, and Erin will be spearheading the adoption process, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So next slide please, Maddie. So just a summary of our engagement process. So we did the stakeholder interviews. We targeted different populations for presentations. One of them was a senior center lunch. That was a great opportunity to talk to folks. We hit a little league practice where I think we talked to, oh man, probably, I don't know, close to 100 people about the project. We gave them cards with the survey code on it. We didn't get a lot of folks taking the survey, but that's okay. I think we got a lot of good information and talked to folks just anecdotally about their experiences with the transportation system in John Day. And then the adoption process you'll be doing over the summer, if you choose to go ahead with this plan, will allow you for different, public hearings and things like that. So next slide, please. So I'm going to hand it to Erin to talk about where the projects originated from.
So the list of projects, it's kind of neat to go through as one as we reached out to a lot of the community and a lot of different platforms. We've walked around. A big one was revisiting the 2009 local street plan, which, there was part of that plan were 41 projects. It was kind of actually an exciting thing to go through because a lot of people says, we haven't done a whole lot, but there's actually been some headway on some of these projects. Some are new, but a lot of the projects that have been done over the last couple of years were part of that 2009 plan. So some of the projects that we've actually completed, that were part of that plan was basically the John Day River Trail. It's from Patterson Bridge to Bridge Street. That has been completed, it was paved a couple weeks ago, tying in that Oregon Pine Bridge. What was that one? So the roadway to Bellevue, that's what the council has renamed, it was called Government Way, that would be Timberway. So it is a street, it is not paved. We would like to hopefully, when funding exists, pave that, but it is a city street now that is actually utilized, that does connect another bridge. Prior to that connection, we only had one bridge connecting the north and south side of the city, which was Bridge Street Bridge. Basically one single point of failure. The Charlotte Heights extension, again, that is close to being rough graded. It'll be in better condition than Timberway, but it'll be basically a gravel street ready to be paved, probably here in the next few months or this summer. Again, that is another project that was based off this plan. And then the sidewalk project that ODOT did, from Grant Union down to 6th Street. So those are just kind of a couple projects that, we've accomplished that were not really new projects, but were part of the original plan. When we kind of looked at that plan and talking with the community and some of the feedback we've had, we have kind of looked at some of those plans, some of those projects, and come up with basically, what do we have, 11, I think, on that board. This is still a draft, so we're trying to finalize that connectivity plan by the end of this month, because that's when this project needs to wrap up. But we have 11 on there. There's a couple more on the board out there. So there's by 13, there's a survey out there that allows the community to come in and say, what are our top 3 or 4? A lot of the deliverables of this are going to be background to, if you have a plan that's been developed by Concert Engineering, ELCD, the city, if it goes through an adoption process where it's time consuming and expensive to update a whole street network. But this would be, Maddie will talk a little bit more to that, but this would be more of an addendum to it. That is a lot of great documentation to apply for grants down the future. So that is kind of the goal with this. So we would appreciate as much feedback we have. We've tried really hard. We haven't unfortunately received as much response as we would have hoped. Not for lack of trying. Next slide.
Yeah, and we'll send you a link to the survey and you can, we're passing around a sheet of paper out there with a table with the projects on there and you're asking folks to just pick their top 3 or 4, but we'll send council a survey link.
And I can add it to the website.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Maddie will touch on this, but it's actually, Kittleson's actually the firm that did the 2009 plan. And so it's really kind of cool to have them on the team as we work on this, hopefully an adopted addendum, but Maddie can touch on that.
Thanks, Aaron. Mayor, City Council, it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I wanted to share a few thoughts on next steps beyond the scope of our grant cycle, which ends June 30th. Unfortunately, Consort turns into a pumpkin after that. But rest assured that your friends and colleagues at the Department of Land Conservation and Development, myself, are here to help move some of the work that they've prepared with Kittleson and Associates along to the finish line. First and foremost, I want to say thanks to the team. Despite some of the changes that are happening in the city and some of the progress that we've seen made on the ground over the last 6 years, a lot's changed recently, and they were steadfast and held strong and continued on with this project. And I hope, Council, you take a look at some of the materials that we've prepared and you feel confident that the projects that have been identified truly are priorities for the community, especially considering the lens that we had for this project, which is focused on folks who have a harder time getting around or don't have access to a car. I just wanted to walk through the key steps of where our project team landed on recommendations or suggestions as to how to move this project through the adoption process. The local street network plan in 2009 was a formal land use plan. So it goes through an adoption process that's fairly robust. But what's great about the work that we've prepared, this team, is that we're able to addend or attach this to the end of your local street network plan. We will not be changing the document that was adopted in 2009, but rather we'll add a cover page, amend some of the index and some of the table of contents, and we'll add an addendum to the end saying, look at the wonderful things that we've done over the last intervening years. And we now, in looking further down the road in our list of 41 projects, here are some of our next step priorities or next order priorities. This has a lot of meaning from funding agencies, as Aaron has suggested. It's actually very much in keeping with the intent of how we do land use in Oregon, where we create a plan. That plan has a really broad scope, broad brush strokes, and then we come back to that plan as we make headway and continue to amend it through doing some public engagement work with your community. That's what I hope that the City Council will choose to move forward with, that you'll agree with those projects. We hope to meet with city leadership and the mayor over the next week or so before Consort's contract concludes and map out that adoption process so that everyone's aware of what the timelines look like. There are some notice requirements, and we'll show you exactly how that would how the puzzle pieces would fit together. That'll come back to you at City Council for consideration to become part of that local street network plan. And the goal ultimately is to position the city for future funding opportunities. So making sure that your plan is current and refreshed enough that grant funders like ODOT and other outside discretionary opportunities know that you've done the work to identify these projects with your community. And with that, I'd just open it up for questions to the team and any concerns or questions you have that I'd be happy to answer. And I'm going to stop sharing so that we can all see each other.
Okay, Aaron had something to add to that, Maddie.
Just one quick comment that, this is setting the city up with documentation and planning documents. When in 2009, we didn't commit the city to implementing 41 projects. We had a plan and we've implemented some, and we haven't implemented some. This is just an update to that. So again, we're trying to get a little more guidance to say where is the focus. And so are these next 3 or 4 or 5 projects, narrowing it down. It doesn't mean that you might look at it in 10 more years and say, well, we did a couple of those, but then we did a couple new ones. So the city's not committing to anything, but we are trying to help focus some efforts for funding opportunities. And I guess, we are committing to priorities,
Right.
But not commitments to spending the city's money.
And that was kind of like our discussion we had with you and Casey and myself, about having we had a plan. That plan has changed because people have left, but the plan is still there. Like, we still want to make these things happen. So, I'm excited to bring some ideas to council and start giving these guys some direction on what council wants to do, because that's what we need to get back to, is directing our city manager on where they direct their employees. So we need to, as council, look into this. I really hope that all of you, if you haven't taken the survey, you should take the survey. I think it's really exciting, and I know that there's been a ton of time put into it, and I know Aaron is extremely passionate about just like, where do we want to go from here? What is our goals? What are our steps? I mean, we have the big goal of the treatment plan, but we have a ton of other projects, like he said, 41 back in 2009, that were priorities of the city, and we need to re-look at some of those and figure out what the council wants to do. But this is definitely going to be direction of council to the team to where they want to go with this. So please get your knowledge, ask your questions right now, reach out to Aaron, take the survey. I will share the survey on the website, so hopefully we can get more. So yeah, any other questions from council on this?
Something came up, Aaron, and I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but the League of Oregon Cities has a small city allotment program. The application period is open until July 31st. Cities with a population of 5,000 or less are eligible to apply. It can be used for streets that are not part of the state highway system and are adequate for the capacity they serve, or on streets that are currently in a condition detrimental to safety. So I can forward you that information if you like.
That's what we're using for E7. So the city, you can only have one SCA grant at a time.
Yeah.
So we applied, I think it was $250,000 for E7, and when we close that out, we will be looking, and that will almost help. As you look at this project, what is the city going to apply for that next cycle?
Yeah.
So this documentation will help with the next grant application.
Right.
And just to clarify, that's not a grant through the League of Oregon Cities, that's a grant through ODOT.
Yeah, it's through ODOT, but it was put out by the League of Oregon Cities, is where I saw.
Well, I think they did a good job. When I first got here, that was just, they were coming around, and so it was kind of neat. Went out to the fairgrounds, and they had their thing there, and we met ahead of time at City Hall, and I know these people that are working on this project, and so you had a great team. And this is neat for the community, and some of these projects along the river, and some bridge, and I think helping the trailer park down there, I think, that's people lower income, getting, the ability for them to get across the river, and also some safety crossings on Highway 26 that they access. So, yeah, I think you did a good job, and I think it'll be great for the council to figure out what you like and don't like and where you prioritize. But this will give you a blueprint for the future to work on.
Yeah, I'm excited, and thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's been a pleasure working in John Day this year, and I hope that you and your staff will continue to reach out to the Department of Land Conservation and Development and other state agencies as you find priority projects that you think you want to move forward on.
Absolutely. I think we've built some great partnerships. So good job, Aaron. Good job, team. So thank you, thank you.
They did the most work.
Tables of their projects circled, I can take those. And if folks that haven't filled one out yet, too, there's some out there.
Could you leave extras too, and I can just leave them on the counter at City Hall? Awesome. All right, so moving on, professional service agreement. Holiday Engineering Company, HECO, for the Purple Pipe Project. Rick?
Okay, this, we've been waiting to kind of move forward, so what we're gonna ask you for tonight, if we can visit a little, is for you to make a motion to approve this and pending the final legal reviews. This morning, 8 AM, we were on it with HECO and Jeremy and I for an hour. And so we're working through getting a few numbers. Aaron helped me today, got me some stuff, which we are going through. But this was the person the company selected. You actually did it back
January, early February?
February, the selection, the
Yeah.
recommendation was made to council.
And so they had their review, and this came out as the company. This is to engineer and work on the bidding, and then actually the installation and construction. They will do the engineer work for us on the Purple Pipe. So they're kind of we should say turnkey. I mean, they're running the whole thing. We don't have to go back out and get another engineer, right, Dave, on this? Yeah. So
They're doing the construction engineer, the design engineer.
yeah.
Oversight.
Yeah, they're doing pretty much all of it.
This is $398,912 of this contract for the engineering. This is not constructed. This is the engineers who will do it all. That's why you get into sewer and water. This stuff's the big numbers. This will ultimately get that pipe up toward the golf course and away from our plant. As Nick talked about, we're gonna treat the sewage and then it's gonna leave the plant. And the plan right now is it would be pumped up the hill and then have beneficial use, whether it's at the mill site, other areas, and the golf course, and with the development that Iron Triangle wants to work on. So that's kind of the plan. This is about a 90-day construction. That was actually, we spent a lot of time on a 90-day construction schedule once you get it engineered and you get it bid. And so, and as Nick said, or I think it was Nick, that grant, we will probably have to get an extension, probably. Do you think, Nick Ducote, or did you go to sleep yet?
I'm here and we'll need to request an extension on that one for sure.
Yeah, because we won't be able to get it all done. But we need to get it going. As long as we got the architect working on it and the engineers and they're doing their thing, you can get that extension. So this could very well be a spring project next year. So, but we will bring back, there'll probably be we won't bring back. We would like you to approve it and pending some of the little legal reviews, wordsmithing it here and there. That's in process. If for some reason we don't reach agreement because of something, will come back again.
Chris, you had a question?
We have to do this before we get easements, correct?
Yes.
The engineering?
We have to do the
Yes.
engineering
Yes.
before we can do right
Yes.
away easements.
Yes. And they'll be able to help us along on some of that.
All right, do I entertain a motion to approve the professional service agreement for HECO Purple Pipe Project,
Pending,
pending legal review?
yes.
So moved.
Katrina makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Sherry seconds. All in favor of approving the professional service agreement with Holiday Engineering Company, HECO Purple Pipe Project, pending legal review, say aye. Aye, opposed? All right, approved. All right, so council vacancy. Elliot Sky is turned in his resignation. He is moving. So he, effective immediately as of last week when he submitted it, he is no longer on council. So we will reopen up a council vacancy application like we did. I need council to give me an idea on if they want to do a month, 2 weeks. it's summertime. I know people are busy. Do we want to give a little bit more time? Ideas, thoughts, discussion on that? 2 weeks, a month,
At least a month.
at least a month?
Yeah, I would say if we could try and do it by our July,
The second July meeting?
yeah, or even the first one,
Well, the first one wouldn't give them a month,
it would be pretty close.
but with holidays and stuff, it might be a little less. I'd be comfortable with the
Second.
giving them, because we want you guys to have plenty of time to review, so we could have the cutoff, say, be July 15th. That's 30-ish days, 32 days.
Yeah.
And then that gives you guys plenty of time to review, and then we could have them at that last July meeting, if that's fine with everybody. Okay, so we'll open the process up. They can go pick up applications at City Hall, or they're available online. Cutoff will be July 15th. And we will have the first set of interviews at the last council meeting in July. All right, so you can stand up and state your name.
Usually, John Day, just a quick question. I'm assuming if someone already has an application.
No, they have to
They
resubmit.
have to resubmit.
Every time you have to
Just wanted make sure
resubmit.
that was clear.
Yep, same,
Will we appoint at that second meeting?
it depends on the vote. So yes, maybe.
We'll interview and appoint, or just interview?
We will interview and take a vote if there is a vote to be made.
If there's a vote to be made, what do you mean?
Like if somebody wants to make a motion, if they want to recommend any of the applicants, but you don't have to make a motion if there's no applicants that you feel comfortable with making a motion. Does that make sense? Or do you have any, I mean, like, does that explain it? So what will happen is the applications will be submitted to us on the 15th, by the 15th. You guys will get those for review. They will also be public once we put our agenda together. We will have, usually, I mean, it was a 5 to 7 interview chance for them to speak if you have any further questions for them. At that point, if someone would like to make a motion for a vacancy spot to be filled by one of them, you make that motion. If the vote passes, it passes. It has to be majority. And then if no motions are made, then we table it till the next meeting, or if there's, so it doesn't have to be decided at that meeting.
I just don't want to see the council go through 3 and 3, 3 and 3.
I agree.
3 for months.
I agree.
Do we want to maybe run this through the administrative committee and have them recommend? Or do we want the whole council to hear and then say, okay, here are the decisions?
I believe we have to have
I
the,
think if you're appointed council member, you can't really delegate that to
No.
a 2 or 3 person committee. You need to have,
I
they
agree.
need to be here on the record and interviewed, not in a committee during the day.
I agree. Yep. All right. So next one is the executive session for the recruiting team. We need to add that because we did not do the public notice. So they are available. He texted me, the 19th, which is a national holiday. It's Juneteenth, but they are available, after 5, he said 5 or 6 p.m. They are also available on the 20th of next week. And those are the 2 dates for next week. If not, we'd have to push it to the following week. So does the 19th or 20th work for?
Since we have a budget meeting that night on the 20th anyway, can we?
Budget meeting's on the
The 27th.
We originally were going to, but we didn't really need to have an extra night.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It's
All right.
not. So
Okay.
we're tentatively planned for a meeting on the 20th.
That's right.
I won't be here. I'll be gone starting tomorrow through the 25th.
Do you have a way to call in?
Huh?
Do you have a way to call in?
No, I'm gonna be in the middle of the Snake River
Okay.
with no cell service.
Okay, well, we can relay if we need to, anything to you, but it's just kind of talking about the recruiting process and where we're at with the application, so. 20th or 19th? You cannot do the 20th? Can you do the 19th? It's a holiday, so everybody has it off.
I do not.
Oh.
I don't work for the government.
So 5 PM on the 19th?
I'll be calling in
Okay,
What's the day of the week?
Monday.
Monday.
Oh, wait, you have fire hall meeting. What time is that at?
7.
So 5 o'clock would work. It's not gonna take more than an hour.
Okay.
So do you wanna do 5 o'clock on the 19th? 5 PM, all right, I'll get a hold of him. All right, so that is, we'll get the notice out for that. And now is the time for any additional comments or anything. I have one update for R3. Our IGA is still being and ourselves as well as Baker. So it will be to us by our last meeting of the month. I have a work session in Baker on the 26th. I go to Baker or Burn, sorry, in a work session to talk about administration and what that future looks like. Baker will also be there as well as Lakeview and Burns. Burns and Baker also do not have city managers as of last week. So there's a possibility that administration team that is hired for R3 can help with some of the pick up the slack for those 3 cities, because Burns, Lakeview, and us are all doing treatment plants, new ones. And then us, Burns, and Baker don't have city managers as of last week with notices and stuff. So there's some possibilities there of some things coming to light with administration team if that's a need be thing that R3 can help with. So stay tuned. There is some things working out right now with some possible interim stuff.
Heather, I have a question.
Yes.
Casey City, John Day. The Juneteenth deal, that does not go in effect for us until July 1.
Because the new handbook.
Because the new handbook has not been adopted yet.
Duly, well, it's been adopted, but it's not effective until July 1. But we closed last year for Juneteenth.
Yeah.
We did. City Hall closed.
The question then is,
I mean, I remember last year they were closed.
Do I have my guys take the holiday off? Because at this point, as far as bookkeeping, we are all coming.
Well, I can tell you last year, I remember it being closed. City Hall was at least closed on Juneteenth.
According to handbook,
Yeah.
it does not take effect till.
Huh? I would say.
If the city's gonna recognize the holiday, then recognize the holiday.
Yeah, I would say I would. So do I entertain a
motion that City Hall is closed on Juneteenth in recognition of the national holiday?
Here, second, David. Okay, Katrina made the motion, David seconds. That includes Public Works?
Yeah.
The whole
City.
city as a whole.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, City Hall and Public Works are not to come to work on the 19th of Juneteenth. So, any other?
That R3, the big bill, the House bill that was funding, that went down to 9 million.
Yes.
They just got combined in. It actually got merged. That
Yes.
bill number doesn't even exist anymore, and it got merged in with other things, as I've said all along. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Yeah, so it went from 30 million to 9 million, and it could even change from there. So we don't know. That's why the work session is happening, is so that the 4 cities now can sit down in a room and really hash out some questions of where we go. Like, do we hire an accountant? Do we hire, what do we need to, not hire, but looking for contractors type of a thing. Planner, all of that kind of stuff. So it'll be a good one to sit through. If anybody would like to drive over there with me, I will be going at 5:30 on that day, so I'm willing to haul over whoever. So do know that R3 is still in the works for all those community members that are worried about it. When you've got 4 cities attorneys looking at things, it's gonna take a little bit of time, but it is being talked about. I get emails and texts on a daily basis about it from Burns, Baker, all of them. So do know that it's still being reviewed and pending, but it is still in the process. So
If the House of Representatives or the Senate or for the House, we don't have to have a special session. We'll see what happens.
hopefully.
Depends if the Republicans show up or not.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other updates? Any comments? Any updates from Public Works?
We're rolling along.
Patterson 7th Street's paved?
West 7th Street is paved, sidewalks are complete. We're gonna have some issues with weed control until we figure out what we're gonna do with the north side of the sidewalk. Feeling I'm gonna be into a battle with ODOT, 395 South project. I don't know if any of you have went down there, looked at the bioswales that they put in. My suggestion to them and my fight with them is gonna be that I am going to not accept that project until the bioswales that they have dirt in, which are already growing goat heads and weeds, which is gonna be a huge maintenance issue for Public Works. I'm going to have ODOT, I'm gonna turn it down until they put cobble in all of those, so it's an easy maintenance issue for the city, it'll look nice, and we'll be done with it, and then I will approve the project.
Okay. Well, any support you need from anybody, let us know.
One last thing for me.
Yes.
I'd like to welcome the mayor of Canyon City
Yes.
and to know that we are willing and able and really willing to work with you on any projects.
Appreciate that. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Steve and I were both at the FEMA training last week with Sherry and Ron, and we had a great discussion, and bridges are being built between county and cities and stuff like that, so mending fences and things are happening, so some meetings are scheduled to happen hopefully soon. Like I said, my schedule's a little bit more flexible now that school's out at the end of the week, so.
If we can help put pressure for bridge.
We got the new inland bridge.
It's the
Nugget.
Nugget. Nugget's the issue. Nugget's the one that gets shut down all the time.
That's right.
But yes, absolutely. Like a good conversation with Steve and myself.
Cool.
Rick, I know, introduced itself to Steve tonight, and so yeah. Discussions are happening and county discussions are happening with some different things, so.
And
there is a lot behind the scenes, trust me. That is for your information right now. We're going out for more bids. It's our AC unit is broken at City Hall. It has been leaking for, he says, a long time. So we're going out, since it's so expensive, we have to get more bids, but that was the only one that came in. So I wanted to give it to you as an update. There's no AC right now at City Hall. So the girls went down and purchased some fans, and they opened the windows up at night to keep it cool, and then the doors while they're there in the morning, and then shut everything down. So stay tuned on that one. It'll be a decision that we have to make. He can either Band-Aid it and fill it with what it needs to be filled with, but it will leak again, and he can't guarantee us how long. And a Band-Aid would be about $8,000 from him and $15,000 to replace the unit. So first bid, obviously, we're going out for more. We're getting one from Burns. And then we asked both of the local people here. And so that will cover our 3 bids. So just for your information.
That was put in quite a long time ago.
He really did say, he's like, I don't know how it's really still, I mean, we had the fire in January in the box that caught on fire, and we had to Band-Aid it then, and so it's been Band-Aided how many years?
15.
Yeah.
I can speak to that. I know that system, when it was originally put in, lifespan of approximately 15 years.
We've hit it, like.
And we're well beyond the 15 year mark.
Yep.
And it needs to be replaced, so.
Yep.
We need to get as many bids as we can and get it fixed.
Yep, Steph has been really active on reaching out and doing that, so hope we've made a date of by the end of, for the next council meeting, we'll have the 3 bids. We've given We're gonna keep pushing for getting people to give us their bids, but just so you guys are aware,
Probably a good time of year to have working air conditioning.
yeah, I know, they went and got fans, but it still doesn't do a lot, so, yeah.
That's a combination, that's heating and cooling, isn't it? Yeah, so.
Yeah, in January when it caught on
Winter time, you're not
fire,
gonna
we
have
didn't have
heat
heat for a while too, so that was also an issue, but, yes, it's been Band-Aid multiple times and it needs to just be replaced. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Katrina makes the motion, David seconds at 8:13. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:13. Thank you, everyone. Hey,